Hey everyone, welcome to the video. This one we're going over the 11-game NBA slate for tonight on Draftkings, and we have a pretty big, pretty fun slate. There's a lot of places you can go, a lot of good players on the slate, so hopefully it's not a big chalk fest tonight. There's not just one lineup you land on. I think it should be a little bit spread out tonight, although, later in the day with injuries, sometimes it creates some massive chalk and some more chalkier lineups, but as of right now, it's looking pretty solid as of right now. Anyway, before we continue though, if you guys could leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out, really appreciate it. Also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16. And if you're new to the channel, this is my spreadsheet I build every single night for the NBA season. I also have a Discord chat where we can discuss things all day. But this is what I use to help make my videos, and it's what I use to help make my lineups, and I've had a very good year so far. So if you're interested, like I said, links in the description below. It's got the player info here, the matchups, the Vegas totals, the pace that the team plays at, the advanced statistic for the players, the DraftKings stats, and I also have projections and values on the end that you can sort by. I also have my defense versus position chart that updates throughout the day. So, you can identify good matchups and bad matchups. And I also have my cheat sheet that I make every day, which I think still has yesterday's players in it. So, but yeah, I'll update that all the way up until lock, as well as these projections. So, anyway, sorry, my Discord popped up. But anyway, let's get into DraftKings and go over this slate. So let me just make sure that the players' names, you can see the players' names when we pop them up. So 1 second. Alright, so we're good. But I don't want to talk about James Harden, so let me get over to all. So the first guy I want to talk about tonight, it is Giannis. He comes in at 11,000, and I just think he is the top play of the slate. Now the main thing here with him is we just have to hope that Pelicans keep this game close, because we do have a 13-point spread, and the Bucks tend to blow people out, and we saw a 4-game stretch of where that was happening, and Giannis didn't really hit expectations. So besides the Orlando game where he played 35 minutes, had a 68-point game, that's just typical Giannis. If you look at the games prior, so they blew out the Clippers, only had 26 minutes, got 46 points. I mean, not too bad for 26 minutes. That's excellent, but we need more than 26 minutes out of Giannis. 28 minutes versus Detroit. They killed Detroit, 51 points. 22 minutes versus New York. They beat them by about 50 points. Still had 54 points. I mean, 22 minutes, 54 points, not bad. But again, we need more than that. Versus Charlotte, they won by almost 50 again. Only had 20 minutes, 45 fantasy points. Then he had a stretch of where they were competitive versus Cleveland, 32 minutes, 35 minutes, then 38 minutes. And then you saw 83 points, 56 points, 60 points. So the only thing here of concern would be is he going to get a full complement of minutes? I'm not sure. I really hope he does, because if he does, I honestly think he could hit 80 points in this matchup, because this game does have the highest total on the slate at 235, and the Bucks also have the highest implied team total of 124. Which is also the highest on the slate. And this game should be a track meet. Both teams play extremely fast. Milwaukee is third in pace of play, while New Orleans is fourth. So both teams are in the top 5 for pace of play. And I love fast-paced games like this. So this all makes perfect sense for a huge fantasy day for guys like Giannis, and really just some other Milwaukee pieces as well. And we all know New Orleans is not a defensive juggernaut. Milwaukee is a very good defensive team. New Orleans is not whatsoever. They are the 6th worst defensive team for points given up this season, and they also rank 20th versus power forwards. And we all know Giannis is a freak when it comes to fantasy purposes. And like I said, if he gets a full complement of minutes, I think he's going to explode here. Now, he's only averaging 30 minutes per game, which is due to them blowing teams out a lot. But if he needs to play 35-plus minutes, he will do so. We saw him play 38 minutes versus Utah. It's not like he's under a minutes restriction whatsoever. He will play 40 minutes if he needs to. Just the problem is he doesn't always need to. And he's averaging an insane 1.9 points per minute this season. That is off the charts. The second best right now on this slate is 1.64, and that's in James Harden. So Giannis is almost at 2 points per minute. I mean, even when he's only getting 20 minutes, he can hit 50 fantasy points. That's the thing. But I mean, if he's going to hit 35 minutes tonight, I mean, would it surprise you if he gets 80 fantasy points? It would not surprise me. Just the only concern would be a blowout, and he also has a 37% usage rate. So Giannis in a competitive game tonight, I think he explodes. So I definitely like Giannis. He's going to be the cover boy of my video. He'll be my thumbnail. And then we have LeBron versus Orlando. You could always play LeBron. You can always play Anthony Davis. They're always good plays. But I would rather play Giannis, to be honest. That rhymed. I didn't mean to. Trae Young, not really a guy that plays Trae Young much. Karl-Anthony Towns, I play him in good matchups, and Utah is not one. Russell Westbrook, he comes in at 9,800, and I actually do like Russell Westbrook. So him and Harden are both elite plays, but Harden's also pretty much $13,000, and there is blowout risk here versus Cleveland. I mean, they're getting blown out of the water by a lot of teams right now. So I'd rather just play Giannis for 2K cheaper than James Harden with still blowout risk, but it's a great matchup, and it's just Giannis is 2K cheaper than James Harden, so I'd rather go that route. But this isn't about James Harden. But Russell Westbrook, I'd rather play, his sidekick to James Harden, but Russell Westbrook's actually had some really good games in a row after a recent bad stretch. I mean, if we just look at the game log, past few games, 51 points, 71, 56, 55, which obviously is great compared to what he has been doing, 35, 48, 43, 38, 35, then 68 versus Portland. But he's had a stretch of rough games, but the minutes are never a problem. But this is an elite matchup versus Cleveland, and I do like that he's in good form right now. Rockets do have a 120-point team total, which I believe is second highest on the slate, only to Milwaukee. And like I said, great matchup versus Cleveland. They are second worst defensively right now, and they are 28th versus point guards. And we just saw Ben Simmons have like near career day versus them recently in about 3 quarters. And Colin Sexton and Garland are not going to be able to hang with Russell Westbrook. He's going to be He's going to be able to out physical them, and he should have his way here. He's averaging 1.34 points per minute, 31.8% usage rate, and I think his path to hitting value is much easier than James Harden. I mean, James Harden could hit 80 points here, but at 12.9K, I would rather be able to get Giannis and Westbrook, because I don't think you're going to be able to play Westbrook and James Harden, and it really doesn't make sense to play both of them because they kind of cap each other's upside. So I'd rather take the cheaper commodity with Russell Westbrook and maybe pair him with someone like Giannis on today's slate. So definitely like Russell Westbrook here. It's an elite matchup, and he's a lot cheaper, and he's in good form right now. So I do like Westy, and then going down the list here, Devin Booker's always in play for GPPs. I'm never really one to play him in cash or just really play him in general. But he's had 3 solid games in a row, 71 points, 50 points, 43 points, all have been great fast-paced matchups versus New Orleans, versus Houston, versus Minnesota. Gets another good one versus Memphis, who also plays fast. I believe both teams are in top 10 in pace of play right now. And Memphis is awful versus point guards and shooting guards. I believe they're bottom 5 for points given up. And it wouldn't surprise me if Devin Booker has another 50-point outing. Never really wanted to play him because he's risky, because if he's not hitting his shots, he's going to suck. And he has scored 20-some points in games before this season. You just got to hope he's hitting his shots. But this is a really good matchup, and I do think his hot stretch could continue. So definitely someone to keep your eye on for GPPs. But I do want to talk about some more Houston guys. So Clint Capela here, he comes in at 8,000, and I do have interest. Now, he did bust for me the last time I played him, where I played him versus Phoenix, and he had 28 points, only played 27 minutes, which was odd because it was a competitive game, and before that, he was seeing huge minutes. Somehow was just not playing much in that game, so he only had 28 points, and he was chalky, but definitely sucked. And before his recent lull that he's had, I should probably shrink my face. You can't really see the game log too well. Okay, so if you look at his recent stretch, he had 34, 28, 28. Pretty sucky, but before that, 58, 58, 44, 39, 58, 42, 44, and that extends on. He was having a great long stretch here, and the recent games have been a little sucky here, but this is a great matchup versus Cleveland. Pretty much everyone does good versus Cleveland. They are one of the worst defensive teams in the league. Like I said, second worst defensively for points given up. And they also rank 24th versus centers. He's averaging 1.18 points per minute. I think he should have a solid game here. At 8K, is he a core play for me? No. If he was like in the low 7K range, I would definitely have a ton of interest. But at 8K, probably more of a GPP option at that point. But he's got a 50, 60 point ceiling, so I don't mind Capela in GPPs. Donovan Mitchell, he is 7,400, and I actually have quite a bit of interest at 7,400. So no Mike Conley, so I'll continue to have interest there, although it really hasn't helped with Mike Conley being out. He missed the Lakers game. Mitchell had 42 points. Not too bad. But then 29 points versus Memphis, which was a great matchup. Sucked there. Only 37 points versus OKC. But he gets another good matchup here versus Minnesota. They play at the second fastest pace of play compared to Utah's 18th. So this is definitely a pace-up spot, and I love getting guys in pace-up spots. Minnesota has also been struggling versus opposing guards this season mightily. 27 versus point guards and 21st versus shooting guards. And he's had over a 30% usage rate with Conley being out. And 2 of those 4 games he's had a 37% usage rate. So the usage rate's going to be there. He gets a bump in points per minute. just bump in usage. So I like Donovan Mitchell here versus Minnesota. I think he can have a pretty big game here. And at 7,400, it's a pretty nice price tag, and I could see him having some ownership again. He's been pretty chalky, so I do have some interest in Donovan Mitchell. And he really, last game he did struggle with his threes, 1 for 8 from the field from deep, and then 10 for 25. But he's taking a lot of shots, so I do like Donovan Mitchell here at 7,400. I think he's a pretty solid mid-range play. Just going down the list here, Jrue Holiday. So he's someone I want to talk about for GPP purposes only. So if we're playing Giannis with a pretty wide spread, I believe it's like 11 or 13 right now, we're probably hoping someone on New Orleans keeps this game close for Giannis to hit his full potential. And honestly, I do think it could be Jrue Holiday if anyone does here, because I think Brandon Ingram's going to have some struggles versus Giannis. But Milwaukee, they are great defensively, but they do struggle quite a bit with one spot in particular, and that is point guards. They rank 19th. And with Lonzo on the bench, Jrue will be running the point, and he's capable of big games. We've seen it. Now, he's capable of putting some 20 and 30, lower 30-point outings, but he's capable of exploding. He had 60 points versus LA, 53 versus Utah, 47 versus Phoenix. He's capable of big games, and I think they're going to need him to have one here versus Milwaukee to keep this game, competitive. He's averaging 1.12 points per minute this season, 25% usage rate. Again, this game's going to be a track meet. Both teams are top 5 in pace of play. So I do think Jrue Holiday is capable of a big game here. Do I think he's necessarily a cash game play? Probably not the best cash game play, but I do think he's an interesting GPP option to pair it with Giannis. It would make sense as a good correlation play. Then scrolling down some more, I don't mind Jarrett Allen here at 6,800. Whoops. So I think he's a pretty solid GPP play as well. I just love the matchup, and the price did come down a little bit compared to the last two games where he's at 7,200. And honestly, I think this could be more of an Atlanta game where he saw 29 minutes, scored 50 points, racked up the blocks, racked up the steals, had a 20-point game, 13 rebounds, 50 fantasy points. Now, he's also 6K that game, and he was also pretty chalky, but this is a really good matchup versus Charlotte. He's averaging 1.17 points per minute, and Charlotte just sucks down low. They're ranked 29th versus centers this season. So Jarrett Allen, I could see him actually having a pretty solid game, maybe at lower ownership, so don't mind some Jarrett Allen. And then one of the plays that's really standing out to me as a pretty good point per dollar option is Kevin Love here at 6K. So he's been complete garbage the past 3 games. I will say that, in 21 points, 15 points, 20 points. But this is also by far his lowest price point of the season. I mean, he's on a downward trend for his salary, but at 6K, I feel like we might have to pull the trigger here, despite how bad he's been, because we know the guy's got upside. I mean, 37 points versus Milwaukee, then 2 awful games, then 46 points versus Miami, 46 versus Miami. So I actually think he's a pretty solid play on this slate. And the problem with Kevin Love is the Cavs tend to get blown out of the water in a lot of these games, so he's not going to play full minutes. I mean, the past 3 games, 22 minutes, 20 minutes, 27. But if the game's competitive, I mean, we've seen 31 minutes, 33 minutes, 39 minutes, so it's not like he's not going to play 30-plus minutes in a competitive game. He will, and that's why I think if the Cavs can keep this somewhat close, I think Kevin Love's a pretty solid play here. Is the pace-up spot, too, for the Cavs. The Houston Rockets are 3rd in pace of play. Houston is also pretty trash on defense, and they rank 27th versus power forward, so this does line up pretty well for Kevin Love to have a pretty solid game as long as this is somewhat competitive and they don't get beat by 40. Love's averaging 1.14 points per minute with a 23% usage rate, which is not bad for someone that's 6K. And if we give him 30-plus minutes in this matchup, he becomes one of the best point per dollar plays on these slate value-wise, because as of right now, there's not a ton of good value options. So Kevin Love, definitely someone we can keep our eye on, and I do think he's a pretty solid play tonight at 6K. Just hope that game stays a little bit competitive. Then at the same price, Eric Bledsoe, I think he makes some sense too at 6K. I just don't hate him due to the high team total, and New Orleans is also 30th versus point guards, which is dead last. We've seen point guards just shred New Orleans. Again, just hope the game stays a little bit competitive so he sees a full complement of minutes. Now, he's only averaging about 28 minutes per game, but in competitive games, he'll play 30-plus minutes. I mean, we've seen it. Atlanta, he played 37, 31 versus Portland, 32 versus Orlando, and the guys have been pretty good. 1.16 points per minute on the year, 23% usage rate. Really good matchup. This game's going to be a track meet. I want exposure to it. So Eric Bledsoe, I think he makes some sense tonight at 6K. Then really after that, I'm running out of good plays at this point. I know Miles Turner's pretty cheap. I think he's, 5,200? Yeah, Miles Turner, 5,200. I would have some interest. It's not the best matchup in the world versus Boston, but to be honest, he's just really cheap, and this price has been a downward spiral for a while now. So 5,200, I think, it's worth a shot, but he's definitely not a safe play. He should get close to 30 minutes, and he's been around a point per minute this season. It's a little bit of a riskier play, but at 5,200, you might have to pull the trigger just because of his price tag, and the guy's got somewhat of an upside, but somewhat of a ceiling, I should say, but not the best play in the world. But again, there's not a lot of good plays down here. Just scrolling down some more. DeAndre Hunter. So I like the minutes he's getting. And again, we don't have a lot of value options, so hopefully some more value opens up throughout the day. But he is coming off a really good game versus Miami. Obviously, overtime helps a little bit. And he was also 5 for 10 from threes, which isn't going to happen every single night. But still, it was encouraging to see. He had 28 fantasy points, 28 real-life points, 42 fantasy points. And the minutes are never an issue with this guy. I mean, look, 40 minutes, 28 minutes, 32, 29, 41, 35, 37, 35, 35. He's going to get the big minutes. Now, is he great on a point per minute basis? No, only about 0.71 points per minute. But, the minutes are solid at this price tag. And, 0.71 points per minute is not terrible at that price either. So, definitely have some interest as of right now. I wouldn't say he's a core play, but he's definitely one of the better mid to low range plays on this slate. Again, just hoping some more value options open up throughout the day. And after this, it gets completely ugly. So I was just looking at some clear punt options. You could play Osman at 3,300. So the minutes, as long as this game's somewhat competitive, he should see close to 30 minutes. And he's got upside, but he also has one of the lowest floors. So 8 points, 3 points. I know it's absolutely awful. Then 36 points versus Orlando. We had 32 minutes. 3 for 7 from deep, 5 for 12 from the field, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 14 points, 36 points. If he can do that at this price tag, yeah, we'll take it. But, I mean, the guy's got such a low floor, 11 points, but then 33, 21, 24, 29, 31, 10. Again, someone to keep your eye on. Just Houston's so bad defensively. They're like 28th or 29th versus small forwards this season. So, Osman, someone to keep your eye on. And then if you want to go all the way down, you could go to Musa. I believe he is dead. The bare minimum here at 3K. Yeah, 3K. And I'm seeing him projected for about 20 minutes tonight. And he's been about 0.7 points per minute on the season. If he gets about 22 minutes, he might be able to squeak out 18 points at 3K, which is not the worst play in the world. And he's been about, I already said that, 0.7 points per minute. But it's a good matchup versus Charlotte. They're not the best defensive team in the world. And they're like bottom 5 versus power forward. So Musa, someone to keep your eye on. Not a core play by any means, but at 3K, he could be a decent punt if he gets about 20 minutes tonight. So again, someone to keep your eye on. But that's going to about do it for all the people I want to talk about. Obviously, some plays can open up throughout the day. And if you want all my up-to-date information, links in the description below for my Patreon, where I'll go over my spreadsheet and my Discord chat as well. I'll see you guys in the next video. Wish you guys the best of luck and have a great Wednesday.